Welcome to the latest episode of 5 on the Floor, the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the 5 Reasons YouTube channel, on Android, Spotify, or the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. Also, check out Off the Floor. We now have our biggest membership we've ever had, so we appreciate all of you who have joined. I do not know why others have not. If you're following us here, why wouldn't you follow the extension of it for less than a cup of coffee per month? So sign on by clicking on the link right here in the description. That'll get you on there. Pay the $2.99. You can cancel at any time. Access to 10 different channels. Also, the stage shows. We've got everything on there. So check it out. This is the place to go. If you're worried about, well, I won't have time to be on Twitter, we take anything relevant from Twitter, we put it here. It'll allow you to comment on it with other Heat fans. Check it out. It's Off the Floor. Also, check out Prize Picks. We know that the NBA, NHL on a hiatus, but you still got WNBA, still got MLB and more. And, of course, we'll get you ready for football season. So check it out. Use the code 5, F-I-V-E. Put down 5, get 50 to play right away. And now, today's episode.
Mercy, luxurious, Heat Nation, yeah, Mercy and Lago, down to Biscayne, yay, 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs. Here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frauds. Down to Biscayne, kept the floor playing, got it all band. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, it's power have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
You got to do it, Greg. Pronounce the last name.
Yakachonis. I got this all day.
Okay. I have, it was funny. We were talking in the press room after he was drafted. And I understand as a former writer who used to have to be on deadline what Ira and Anthony will be dealing with. It took me forever to learn how to spell Dwayne. It kept auto-correcting me, among others. Khalil,
now my phone auto-corrects it the way that
to the wrong way.
It.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know you're big when you literally change the way a first name is spelled by everybody. So, yes, the Dwayne one was a challenge. There have been other challenges over the years. I still can't figure out where to put the apostrophe for where in his first name. I do it wrong all the time. It's like after the E, okay. So Ira was saying when they drafted Yakachonis, there you go, when they drafted him that he's just got the F5 key on his keyboard. So that's it. Just put it in. That's probably the best way to do it. Mm-hmm. But he will be announced today. You may be listening to this afterwards. We have Brady and Alex both there. So we'll have another podcast on that introduction.
I'll be reacting on Discord too.
Yes, actually, check out Off the Floor. And he's already chosen the number 25, worn by the great Anthony Carter, former Heat player and assistant.
And Kendrick Nunn.
And Orlando Robinson. Is there anybody else? Am I missing any? Hold on.
25s, gosh. And you and I are the ones that go through this craziness. I actually can't remember another number 25.
Hold
maybe
on,
as we do this show, I'll look it up.
Historical numbers 25. Let's see. Basketball Reference keeps all this. So Nunn, Orlando Robinson, Anthony Carter. All right, there are 8 players actually who've worn the number 25. I should have made this a trivia question. It's not a great history. The first was, this is before even your time. Remember Milt Wagner played at
I do.
Louisville?
That was the
His
year
son,
I started
actually,
watching
Deshaun
the Heat,
Wagner.
actually, 91. I'm
91.
old.
And Deshaun Wagner is kind of a sad story. Was supposed to be a really great player if you follow that one. Jeff Malone at the end of his career, which was a very good career for Washington, not a great year for Miami. Anthony Carter should have been retired in the rafters. 2000 to 2003, one of my favorites. He also tossed the ball over the backboard, if you recall that, and went in. Wayne Simeon, first-round draft pick from Kansas, now a preacher. Eric Dampier.
That was one I should have remembered in retrospect.
Yeah, Damp's career here wasn't that memorable, but yes.
Now that I can picture him with the headband and the 25, it
Mhm.
makes a lot more sense. I'm just surprised it didn't come to me sooner.
Yeah. It's funny because they tried to get him sooner. There's another one of the guys they circle back to, but by the time they got him, he was not very good. Well, they had all those other guys, Turioff, Z, Joel, all those bigs. Jordan Mickey, brief stint in 18. Kendrick Nunn, now dominating overseas, and Orlando Robinson had high hopes for him. Very intelligent gentleman, but just didn't have a lot of upside. Anyway, so Yakachonis is going to be number 25. We'll see how he wears it. Has a chance to be the best 25 in Heat history, actually. There's not a lot of competition there other than AC. And we are going to talk about him in the context of the team here. Now, I already did an episode with Brady about how he fits with other players, but I want to talk philosophy in this episode. So that's the floor plan. And this is where I'm at with it. All right. This league is parity inflicted now. With the exception of the team that just won the championship, which looks like it's primed for a very long run with its draft picks, its youth, and all that.
But they got pushed to 7. So, I mean,
they did get pushed to 7, and they got pushed to 7 by a team that lost its most pivotal player in the 7th game. And so you can make an argument that other teams can make a run if they can create the right style and the right chemistry for their team, which is what Indiana and Rick Carlisle did with that roster and Kevin Pritchard putting it together. So I'm going to make the case here that there's been no better time other than maybe 2003 for the Heat to push into youth. And when I say push into it, I mean really, really, really commit to it. Because their philosophy typically, unless they've had, and see, it got thrown off by the big three, Greg, because LeBron and Bosh came here at 25, 26 years old, and Dwayne wasn't 30 yet. So that was a young, in their prime team that also had 3 of the best talents in the entire world. So you almost have to throw that out because that was a different – because then it was, okay, get vets. You don't want to have time to wait for Mikal Gladness and Harris.
It wasn't a youth movement at all.
Youth movement. Like Norris was the only one, and they traded up to get him, and Norris made the rotation the second year, obviously, and then was with them for the final 2 championships – or for the 2 championships and then the final year. But other than that, it was okay. We're going to go get Rashard Lewis. We're going to get Ray Allen. We're going to get Shane Battier. We're going to get these kind of guys. You mentioned, Dampier, Turioff, Z. Okay, these were the guys that they had. The only guy they kept was Rio. Okay, who they brought in. So who they brought in before in 2008 and drafted him second round. So you almost have to throw that out because that was okay. You have those guys, and you're just going to supplement them with vets who know how to play, understand their role. Even though they complained about it more behind the scenes than people really believed. But James Jones, you knew you could pull him off the bench and he'd give you 3 threes and then he'd disappear for a month. Like this
also, not to interrupt you, but to exemplify how much that was not like what we're about to talk about today, the Heat basically, when the big 3 were formed, spent those 4 years kind of avoiding the draft like a plague to some degree. Yes. So, it was not like a youth movement, like let's build and plug and play rookies. They had traded all their draft picks to get that extra year from Bosh and from LeBron.
Well, Toronto and Cleveland, and they've talked about it that afterwards, of course, the rules changed after it. You can't even sign the 6-year deals anymore with the 2-year out, the 4-year out. But they've talked about it, Greg, that in retrospect, they could have fought harder to keep the picks, but particularly ones with Toronto, but ultimately, you're getting Bosh and LeBron. Let's just get the deal done, right? Like, just don't do anything to screw it up. So yeah, the draft, in part, they didn't have the assets to do it because they had traded them, but also there wasn't the type of team. Now this is different, okay? And their philosophy has typically been 5-5-5, sort of. And I may characterize this a little bit incorrectly, but this is kind of how I perceive it. It's 5 pre-prime players, okay? 5 players you're developing. Some could be first-round picks, second-round picks, undrafteds. Sometimes the undrafteds will fall more into the middle category because they're a little older when the Heat have been able to, like whether it was Duncan or Strus or Haywood, they're a little bit older than maybe a player who's just getting out of the draft. Okay, so there are typically this idea of like 5 pre-prime, 5 guys in their prime, somewhere in that 26 to 29, 25 to 30 range, something along those lines. And then, 5 vets, like just guys, locker room guys, your UDs, your Kevin Loves, that type of player. That's what they've I typically striven for. And what I'm saying right now is no. Okay. I'm saying no because here's my concern. I just want to see the kids play, and I want to see what they have together. And then once you know that, then you can go supplement to get the veteran pieces to add to it. But what I don't want to see this year, there's no disrespect to any of them, okay? I don't want to see a ton of Alec Burks minutes. I don't want to see, Kevin Love minutes. Kevin's doing a lot of great things behind the scenes, but I don't want to see him progress stopping for others. Rozier for sure. And I mean, that's kind of where I'm at with it. If
Even
you're going to lean
Wiggins,
into
right?
Well, Wiggins and Duncan, and this is where it gets, because typically Wiggins and Duncan, and obviously Duncan's accomplished a lot more in Miami, right? No, but of course, but they would be in that middle group,
Mm-hmm.
kind of trending towards the end of that middle group, like Wiggins and what is Duncan, 30 at this point?
I believe so. I know Tyler is 25.
Tyler's 25.
And
So Tyler is Bam is in the middle group. Duncan turns 31. Okay, so typically Duncan would be kind of on the tail end of that second group, entering the third group, right? Wiggins is 30. Bam is in the middle group. Clearly he's in the middle group. This is Bam's prime. Okay, whether or not there's more there, we'll see. But this is Bam's prime, and Tyler is entering. Tyler has sort of aged out and progressed out.
Yeah.
Of that first group, where he's an all-star. He's in the middle group now. Okay. I don't want to see the guys in that third group, in that older group, playing very much. And I don't even know that I want a lot of them on the roster. Like, give me K Love and give me maybe Burks as a shooter, and that's about it. And so I'm just curious where you come down on this, because it pivots into how Spoelstra is going to use them, and the organization's philosophy to make guys prove it, which leads to the young guys not playing so much, which sometimes I agree with. Okay, I agreed with it with Jovic. I agree with it to where to a certain point this season. But also it plays into this idea of, we're trying to win every game. And I just am okay this year, even with the depleted East, with them winning in terms of learning how these guys play together and giving them the space to make mistakes. Do you agree?
I do, in this unique circumstance, because we've talked about picking a direction, and even like if the Jonathan Kuminga stuff comes to fruition at all. I mean, he's 22. I'm looking at it now. So he would kind of fall in that not quite at your prime view too. So like, it's hard for us to really have this conversation and unpack it fully when we don't know what the roster looks like. But to your point, there's only 2 exceptions to the that they, like, from my opinion, there's only 2 exceptions to the rule of let's lean completely young. And it kind of it surrounds 2 things. One, sometimes it can be pretty difficult for a young team to stay organized and run competent sets and things like that. So I think like you're going to need some level of your point guards to have some experience, which Davion Mitchell has, and we'll see what Kasparis Yakachonis can do. But like, to rely on a rookie point guard is a big ask. So I think like we'll need to, and if Davion's back, obviously that will probably fill the hole. But if Davion were to go elsewhere, right, I feel like to go into the season with Kasparis, I just want to call him Yak sometimes. I think that did they call him that overseas?
Yeah, I don't know if it's Yak or or Jack. I don't know how they pronounced it, but in Barcelona, I guess it was Yak. You could go. I kind of feel like he's going to get the nickname Ghost because he's kind of gotten the nickname Casper. But that's my concern, is that Spoelstra is going to make him a ghost. So I don't want to really say that into existence. So
point guard, if Davion were to not be back, I don't think you can just go completely young with that particular position. I hate to put a position on it, but like your primary organizer and facilitator. And here's the other one, Ethan. You need in order for these young guys to get the opportunity to maximize themselves, get the opportunity to grow this league, you need shooting around them. So that's the other part where if you need to insert a veteran into the lineup at the expense of maybe some of the young minutes because you want to space the floor correctly, particularly if you were in a scenario where it was Ware, Adebayo, and Kuminga as your front court. Again, we're speculating if that were to happen and they do go young, you would have to just consider that occasionally you may need to lean into your vets for shooting prowess, particularly on the road, and then just making sure that you have decision makers that are handling the ball that are not going to, and this is something that Casper has had some issues with at Illinois with the turnovers. Like you need to, so those are the two things. And I know I'm kind of nitpicking that I think that you'll have to think through how you balance having some experience lead those attributes versus just having the younger players out there. But I'm fully on board with what you're saying. And I think that there's a way of doing it where you remain competitive. You're not trying to lose at all. And you try to win every game, but just by virtue of playing younger, to your point, if you drop a few more here or there, listen, they were blowing leads with a bunch of vets on the court last year. So if we're going to blow leads and go through that song and dance, let's do it with the young players. Let's let them get their feet wet, get as much experience as possible. And frankly, Spo will probably still coach him to 36 or 37 wins, which is where they were last year. So to your point, there's really it's not like a situation where had you acquired Durant, you'd be on this timeline of like, hey, we got 2 years to make the most of this. Then I would say, okay, maybe some of these young guys, you can't have the patience. To your point, if that's not going to happen and it doesn't appear that another like veteran star is going to be sent to Miami, I think the fans honestly would really embrace the idea of a fun, young, faster team. And it would just kind of almost be a breath of fresh air to a lot of the fans to see maybe even a different style of basketball, even if occasionally you gave up a few more points, maybe lost a few close games, things like that, because they've been experiencing that the last 3 years anyway.
I mean, you're basically talking about 2003. I mean, and 2003 for a lot of people, 42-40, losing in the second round. I don't know that Miami would get that far this time, but that
season sucked until March.
People forget that. Yes, I'm putting that aside, and I covered a lot of that season. Look, I was in Philadelphia for the season opener, and Iverson against Wade. It's amazing how things came around, wearing the same number, and then you have Allen introducing him in the Hall of Fame, which is just just crazy how all that turned. But I remember Stan coming out of the locker room that day and looking totally frazzled, his first game that he ever coached. And that week, a column was written by some national writers, I can't remember who it was, but saying this might be the worst team in NBA history. And they went from 0-7 to 42-40 and got to the second round. But yes, people only remember about February or March forward, but they remember that season. That season ended up being a lot of fun. Now, do you have a Dwayne on this roster? People say, you don't have a Dwayne on this roster. I mean, they knew they had something special, okay, for sure. But again, Dwayne didn't sound like he won Rookie of the Year. He made incredible plays in the playoffs. Again, I remember all of them, okay, and the game winners and everything else, the runner in the lane, Tony's call and all that. But the reality is he was a 16-point scorer, turned the ball over a lot as a rookie. He was really good. He was really promising. There was a lot of stuff there. We're like, oh, wow, okay, this kid is going to be great. Right, but dunking on Jermaine and all the rest of that. But also, there are more young players on this team. Tyler's already established as an all-star. Don't send me hate mail. I'm not saying he's Dwayne, but he's already established as his Bam. That team was bringing in Lamar, who had kind of, I don't know, I would say disappointed to a certain degree with the Clippers, which was one of the reasons he was available. And, you had Eddie and you had Brian, but, and UD was a rookie, an undrafted rookie. So that's why, and Malik Allen and Rafer Alston, who they brought in, who had played for like 17. So this idea, again, that they were better equipped to make a run with a young team that year is not really true. And they have a lot of pieces this time. We just don't know how they fit, and we don't know what the upsides are. And I'd kind of like to see it as opposed to, seeing guys on the floor. And I'll get to your shooting point in a second. But seeing guys on the floor who are not going to be a big part of their future and are just keeping other guys from making the mistakes they need to learn through their mistakes. All right, before we get to that, though, here's a mistake: sending money with anything but Cash App. Why? Because Cash App is the safest way to send money. Again, you can use our code on the floor. Not only is it safe, but you'll also get $10. That's right. Send $5 to a friend after you use our code on the floor. Do it within 14 days. Okay. Time's running out on this promotion, by the way. So get in there now. Use the code on the floor. Send $5 to a friend. You get $10 dropped right into your account. Again, like I said, sending money with Cash App actually feels safe. They look out for you if something seems sketchy. They see you might be sending money to a potential scammer. They'll warn you, make you think twice before you hit send. So check it out. For a limited time only, new Cash App users can use our exclusive code. All of us have Cash App here already, so we can't use this code. Only you can use our exclusive code to earn some additional cash. No, there is no catch. Download Cash App and sign up. Use our exclusive referral code on the floor in your profile. Send $5 to a friend within 14 days. You get $10 dropped into your account. Terms apply. That's money. That's Cash App. You made an interesting point with the shooting. And I'm going to do an episode with Adele talking about some of these undrafteds that they're going to take a look at in Summer League, because there are a couple guys who jump out. They're both front court players. One's more of a shooter. One's more of a traditional back to the basket big. But the one thing that they haven't hit on since Max is a shooter.
Mm-hmm.
And, they had obviously Duncan. I mean, they found their best shooter in franchise history this way. They found Max. But and Davion was a much better shooter than anticipated. And by the way, Davion, like you said, he fits this entire timeline. He's 26. See, Haywood's 28, going to be 29 soon. And that's why, again, I'm saying, like, you think of him as a younger player, but that's only because he got such a late start, right?
He should be part of the vet 5. If we're going to do the 5-5-5 thing, maybe we adjust the age brackets a bit for this group and put him with them. Because I do think that there's value in what he brings as a veteran defensively, and even with some shooting, frankly, that I think he very much, and also doesn't need the ball. So I think that all of those are things that he can be a part of, maybe a rotation with all these young guys. But I think, to your point, and I didn't mean to steal thunder here, Alec Burks is another guy that could potentially get some opportunities if they need the space. And I also just want to remind everyone, I don't know how likely this is. And we still don't know if Duncan Robinson is going to exercise his early termination option. He has until the 30th to do so. But let's say he does not exercise his early termination option. So that would make him a member of the Heat up until July 8th, when the Heat would have to make that decision on waiving him and having only the partial guarantee. This was something that and we've mentioned it on other shows, but I have to bring it back. They could re-sign him even if he were to be waived. And so, if he's already making $9.8 million from the Heat, they could maybe offer him a 1-year deal at a low number. And he already knows he's getting $10 million from the Heat. And that could be helpful for them to retain a shooter. So I just think that that's something that we could consider if there's the chance. And I don't know that Duncan maybe necessarily wants to be back, but they have the ability to bring him back if by chance shooting becomes scarce.
It's interesting you said that, because I don't know either. I don't know either. He didn't talk at on exit interview day. I don't want to make too much of that, but I was a little surprised that he didn't speak there. He's been around town, but I'm not sure either. But it is a good point for sure that that's a possibility that they could do that. And look, I wouldn't mind still having Duncan here. I think if you're going to talk about him as one of the vets, a vet who can still contribute and can shoot, that's positive. But, again, no disrespect to Kyle Anderson, who did some good things for them last year and helps sort of grease the wheels on the court with a lot of the things he does. But I don't want to see minutes of his. I don't want to see him playing ahead of Jovic, right?
Agreed.
I mean, that's what I'm talking about here. It's
that's
not
the
that,
lean in, yeah.
Right. That's not where I have a problem with these players in particular. But it has to be a philosophy going into the season that we're going to do everything we can to put these guys in every position we can, every situation we can, so that we can find the group that we want to grow with. And, we're obviously the Tyler extension is going to be hanging over their heads and all of that. But that's where I'm going with this. And the shooting part, they need a shooter. You're right in this sense, okay? The offense is going to look awful, playing a ton of young guys if they don't at least have one shooter on the floor at all times besides Tyler,
exactly.
right? Like they have to have somebody. Okay, so I get that part of it, like finding a shooter, but some of this other stuff and trying to recoup Val. I don't care how good Terry Rozier looks in training camp because I know there's going to be a day. There's going to be a day. I can predict it at FAU and Boca. Spo's going to get up there, and people are going to go. And everybody needs stories, right? TV cameras are going to be there. Terry had a down year last year. Nobody's rooting against Terry. Terry seems like a good guy. Okay, so this isn't about that. But it's like there's going to be a day out there, and Spo's going to say, "Yeah, well, he heard a lot of things last year, whatever. Okay, and he's going to downplay the struggles last season. It's what he does. He takes up for his players. He's going to talk about how hard Terry's worked and how he's doing all the right things and he's putting in this time. And how professional he's been under the circumstances. There's going to be a Terry Rozier day. Okay, but there can't be a lot of Terry Rozier 25-minute nights, okay, just to recoup value. That's where I'm at with it. Like, yeah, okay, you can focus on the positives, but we've seen this before. They're not going to get value out of him anyway. The league knows at this stage, and it is what it is. It's the last year of a contract of roughly $24 million, okay? And that's that.
To that point, I think as we've kind of wanted to point this episode in the direction of philosophical team building, roster construction kind of thinking, obviously Terry's number is too high for you to wave and stretch, and they may look to trade him, but they may also just like with Lowry, where it would have been better off for them to just let him expire than attach a pick to go get someone. I don't think they're going to repeat that mistake, but if somebody were to have a point guard go down and you could send Terry away for maybe equal expiring money and someone thinks they can recoup, to your point, they need to be as open-minded as ever about making those types of moves. And also another part of this is restocking the developmental pipeline, like that from a philosophy perspective, because I don't know that we all feel like Josh Christopher, Isaiah Stevens, who didn't get his qualifying offer,
that tells you everything,
sent out to him so he could go elsewhere, but it also kind of shows where the Heat are at with him. Also, Drew Smith, he's coming back from an injury. So I don't consider him part of this youth pipeline that they're developing per se. So they also need to restock that, because part of what's worked for the Heat is not necessarily, it's kind of cool that they're starting to have a bunch of first round draft pick players on the roster that we could talk about. But I think you need to supplement that with knowing that you've got guys in your system that are also maybe all you need is one of those guys to pop and it can change the complexion of how the roster is built. So I'm going all the way from who Spo has in his top 7-8 on a daily basis. And it's a long ass season. So you may need a week of Alec Burks here or there, or a week of Kyle Anderson here or there, but also let's restock the developmental pipeline and hopefully get a shooter, a big, and maybe a good defensive wing that you feel good about as your two-way guys as well.
Well, that's true. Now, Drew is Drew 27 yet? I think he was on the older side for their developmental projects. That's what I was checking. And of course, now this is his second significant injury. And look, I've become a big Drew Smith supporter because of what he produced last year. Okay, so he's 27. So yeah, look, that's not old, but obviously he's coming off two significant injuries. Now, he was never a guy who relied heavily on foot speed anyway. So I do think he can probably be a contributing player in the NBA still, but we know what's coming with that too. Let's say he comes back and Spo trusts him, right? They're having point of attack defense problems and we don't see Yakachonis for 3 weeks because Drew's getting all those minutes. Then that's also problematic, I think. Yep. I'm not saying don't give him a chance. And I think Drew's going to end up with a two-way. That's what I predict here. I think they'll bring him back on a two-way provided that he's healthy and then kind of see where he is with it. But, I don't want to see – look, Davion offers, I think, a little bit more than Drew does even when Drew is healthy. So, right. So, and you're talking about a former first-round pick. I'd like to see both of them in the rotation at times, and I do think there's a place for Drew again if he can get back to the level he was at last year. But it can't be, always at the expense of, okay, Yakachonis is committing some turnovers, so we got to shelve him for 3 weeks. And you mentioned the developmental stuff. We really didn't see Keshad Johnson much last year. I thought we would see more of him. And Again,
and he's got
I'm
a standard. So to your point, like there's
Right.
no reason why he can't get 15 minutes a night at least to see what you have there and let him get game action, because they pounced on him the moment the draft ended,
Mhm.
and there's a reason for that. Like, and I
Well,
chronicled
not
how
just
they
pounced on him, but like you said, they gave him a standard, right?
correct.
So,
Yeah.
and he has a talent that is not in abundance on this roster, which is quick twitch athleticism, which is not
Mhm.
something they have a ton of. And you look at it, what he could potentially offer instead of. And again, I like what Haywood provides, but we kind of know Haywood has maximized himself. Great credit to him for becoming a passable NBA shooter, considering where he was when he came to the league. He was the worst offensive player in the league by the metrics his first year in the NBA. So was Davion, by the way, in Sacramento in his own year. So you're talking about two guys who provided, something offensively, and that's great. But Keshad Johnson has that athletic talent that I think you want to see a little bit more of that and get those easy baskets. And I'm thinking about him. I'm thinking about Ware. I'm thinking about Bam. I'm thinking about Yakachonis being out on the break. Maybe Jaquez can find, second life here in some way. Okay. If
Mhm.
he's not pigeonholed in the corner, shooting threes, which is not his skill set.
Let him try to
Maybe.
help in the half court the way Jimmy did, but just not obviously as often as Jimmy or to the
Mhm.
extent that Jimmy did it. But like kind of we always compared his game to Jimmy. And I think like there could be moments if they're playing in the half court where this is the season that, yeah, you even lean into a player that I think some Heat fans have kind of written off as somebody that maybe like peaked in his rookie year. I
Yeah,
think
they have.
that there's a chance Jaquez could really help this team if he were to regain the form we saw in his rookie season.
Yeah, and again, I want to see these guys get the opportunity. Larson also, Jovic, ball in his hands. Just create the lanes for these guys, and don't block them with players that we know are not going to be here in 2 years. That's where I'm at with it. All right, Greg, appreciate it. We'll have more episodes coming up. Yakachonis is speaking in Miami in about 10 minutes as we're finishing up this episode. Alex and Brady have coverage on Off the Floor, so we hope you're subscribed there. I'll probably grab Alex later today to do a podcast. Have a good one.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. After all, someone needs to listen to my dad.